My father-in-law just gave the promotion I'd been promised for 5 years to his nephew, who's been a lawyer for 93 days. After 5 years of building the family law firm from the ground up, after bringing in millions in revenue, after sacrificing countless nights and weekends, William Coleman handed my senior partner position to Marcus, who just passed the bar exam 3 months ago. I handed in my resignation with a calm smile. "Congratulations to Marcus," I said. When my father-in-law read my letter, he lost it. "You can't be serious," he shouted, his face turning red. But what he didn't know was that I'm not just any lawyer. I'm a specialist in family law and legal ethics. And I was about to show him exactly what happens when you betray someone who knows where all the legal bodies are buried. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you're viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family betrayal that might just change how you see your own relationships. My name is Victoria Chen, and for 5 years I believed I was building something meaningful at Coleman & Associates Family Law. I'm 33 years old, a Harvard Law graduate specializing in complex divorce cases and estate litigation. My expertise was in high-net-worth family disputes, the kind of cases where fortunes and reputations hang in the balance. When I married David Coleman 5 years ago, his father William welcomed me into both the family and the firm with open arms. "Victoria," he'd said during my first week, "you're exactly what this practice needs. Fresh perspective, Ivy League credentials, and the kind of sharp legal mind that can take us to the next level." For 5 years, I believed him. I worked 16-hour days building our client base. I handled the firm's most complex cases, including a $50 million divorce that put us on the map. I developed our estate litigation division from scratch, bringing in over $2 million in revenue last year alone. The firm grew from 3 lawyers to 12 under my strategic guidance. I'd hired half the staff, implemented new case management systems, and built relationships with judges and opposing counsel that opened doors throughout the legal community. But most importantly, I'd been promised the senior partner track. William had made it clear that when he eventually stepped back, I would become the managing partner, with David handling business development and our third partner, Janet Morrison, focusing on family court litigation. My relationship with the Coleman family was complicated. David's mother, Patricia, made subtle comments about my career ambitions. His sister, Michelle, married to a surgeon, had never worked but resented the attention William gave my achievements. The person who complicated everything was Marcus Coleman, William's 26-year-old nephew. Fresh out of law school with easy confidence that comes from family connections, William hired him as keeping the legal tradition in the family. I'd been mentoring Marcus for 3 months, teaching him everything from case preparation to trial strategy. He was smart but completely inexperienced. He'd never handled a contested divorce or negotiated a complex settlement. But he was a Coleman, and that seemed to matter more than experience. The announcement came during our monthly partners meeting on a Tuesday morning in October. I'd spent the weekend reviewing our quarterly numbers, which showed record revenue and client satisfaction scores. I was prepared to discuss expanding our estate planning division and possibly opening a second office. William stood at the head of the conference table, his silver hair perfectly styled, wearing the navy suit that made him look every inch the distinguished attorney. "I have an exciting announcement," he began, his voice carrying that authoritative tone that commanded attention. After much consideration, I've decided to accelerate our succession planning. Effective immediately, I'm promoting Marcus to senior associate, with a clear pathway to junior partner within 18 months. I felt the world tilt slightly. Senior associate was the position I'd been promised as the next step toward partnership. But William wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm restructuring our management hierarchy. Marcus will be taking over day-to-day operations, allowing me to focus on strategic planning and client development. Janet Morrison shot me a look across the table, her eyebrows raised. She knew as well as I did that this wasn't the succession plan we'd discussed. This was something entirely different. "What about the estate litigation division?" I asked, keeping my voice carefully neutral. "We discussed expanding that significantly next year." William's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. "That will be part of Marcus's portfolio going forward. You'll continue handling your current caseload, of course. But we think it's important for our next generation to gain experience across all practice areas." Marcus looked uncomfortable, shifting in his chair. "Uncle William, maybe we should discuss the timeline more." "Nonsense," William interrupted. "You're ready for this responsibility. Victoria's been an excellent mentor, and now it's time for you to spread your wings." I sat there, processing what had just happened. 5 years of building this firm, 5 years of promises about partnership, 5 years of sacrificing evenings and weekends. And it was being handed to someone who'd been practicing law for exactly 93 days. After the meeting dispersed, I stayed behind as William organized his papers. Marcus had left quickly, avoiding eye contact. Janet had squeezed my shoulder on her way out, whispering, "I'm sorry, Vic. This is wrong." "William, I need to understand what just happened." He looked up, his expression shifting to the patronizing tone I'd grown to recognize but never challenged. "Victoria, you're an excellent lawyer. But Marcus brings something unique to the table. Family, legacy. Long-term commitment to the firm's future." "Long-term commitment? I've been here 5 years. I've built half this practice." "And that's appreciated. But Marcus won't be leaving to start a family, or moving if his spouse gets a job offer. He's invested in the Coleman name in ways that, well, that others might not be." The implication hit me like a slap. Because I wasn't a blood Coleman, my commitment was somehow suspect. Because I was a woman of childbearing age, I was a flight risk. Because my career mattered to me, I wasn't truly family. "So, this decision is final?" William stood, straightening his tie. "Victoria, you're family. This doesn't change that. We just need to be realistic about long-term planning." Family. The word that was supposed to include me now being used to exclude me. That night, I sat in my home office reviewing the partnership agreement I'd signed 5 years ago. David found me there at midnight, surrounded by legal documents and case files. "Vic, you're scaring me. What's all this?" I looked up at my husband, this man I'd loved and trusted, whose family had just betrayed everything I'd worked for. "David, did you know about your father's decision?" His expression told me everything. The slight flinch, the way he avoided my eyes, the defensive set of his shoulders. He mentioned he was considering some changes. Changes? David, he gave my promotion to Marcus. 5 years of building this firm, and he handed senior associate to someone who's been practicing law for 3 months. David sat down across from me, running his hands through his hair. Maybe it's temporary. Maybe he's just easing Marcus into the firm. By giving him my job? Vic, you know how Dad is about family legacy. Marcus is the next generation of Coleman lawyers. And what am I? The silence stretched between us. Finally, David said quietly, "You're my wife. That's different." Different. Not equal, not a real Coleman, just the daughter-in-law who'd been useful for a while. I spent the next 3 days doing what I do best, legal research. But this time, I wasn't researching for a client. I was researching my own situation, the firm's structure, and most importantly, Marcus's qualifications. What I discovered was explosive. My partnership agreement contained specific performance metrics I'd exceeded by significant margins. The firm was contractually obligated to consider me for partnership. My client relationships were deeper than realized. 60% of current revenue came from my cases, with retention agreements signed with me personally. Most importantly, I'd handled the firm's most sensitive cases. Divorce proceedings involving politicians and judges, estate disputes where family secrets could destroy reputations. But the most significant discovery was about Marcus himself. As a family member being brought into the firm, I'd been asked to review his credentials for the hiring process. What I found was disturbing. Marcus had been placed on academic probation twice during law school. He'd barely passed the bar exam on his second attempt. And most concerning, he'd been involved in an ethics investigation during his final semester regarding improper conduct during a mock trial competition. None of this had been disclosed to the State Bar Association. In fact, his application for admission contained several inaccuracies that bordered on outright fraud. William had hired his nephew knowing about these issues and had actively concealed them from both the bar and the firm's malpractice insurance carrier. As a specialist in family law and ethics violations, I recognized exactly what this meant. The firm was potentially liable for massive damages if Marcus made any significant errors. Our malpractice insurance could be voided due to the misrepresentation, and William could face disciplinary action for knowingly hiring someone with undisclosed ethics violations. Then I found something that changed everything. Something Marcus had prayed I'd never see. I now had leverage. Significant leverage. Instead of confronting William immediately, I decided to test the loyalty of the people I'd considered family. I would approach each family member individually, sharing my concerns about the firm's direction and seeing who would support me versus who would protect the family's interests over fairness. I started with David. Over dinner that Friday, I laid out my concerns about Marcus's qualifications and the potential liability issues. David, I need you to understand something. Promoting Marcus isn't just unfair to me. It's dangerous for the firm. His bar application contained misrepresentations that could destroy our reputation. David's response was immediate and telling. Vic, you can't go after Marcus because you're upset about the promotion. That's not who you are. This isn't about being upset. This is about protecting the firm from serious legal and ethical issues. You're being vindictive. Marcus is family, and family protects family. There it was. The same phrase William had used. The same logic that excluded me while protecting Marcus despite his clear incompetence. What about protecting me? I'm family too, aren't I? David's hesitation spoke volumes. Of course you are. But this is different. Marcus needs this opportunity. And I don't? You're established, Vic. You don't need the validation the way he does. Validation. As if my 5 years of building the firm was just an ego exercise, while Marcus's need for advancement was legitimate family obligation. Patricia was even more direct. The Coleman name has value beyond credentials. Sometimes blood matters more than resumes. You should be grateful for the opportunities you've been given instead of questioning family decisions. Michelle was brutally honest. You've always been very ambitious, but this is Dad's firm, not yours. Marcus's family, real family. You married into this family, you weren't born into it. There's a difference. Every conversation followed the same pattern. Family loyalty trumped everything else. Qualifications, fairness, ethics, even legal compliance. I wasn't family in the way that mattered. I was an outsider who should be grateful for what she'd been given and silent about what she'd been denied. After a week of family conversations that made it clear where I stood, I decided to exercise the nuclear option. The nuclear option that would change everything. I scheduled a meeting with William under the pretense of discussing my role going forward. William, I appreciate you taking the time to meet. I wanted to discuss how we can make this transition work smoothly. He looked relieved, probably thinking I was going to accept the situation gracefully. Of course, Victoria. I knew you'd be professional about this. Actually, before we discuss my role, I need to address some concerns about Marcus's qualifications. William's expression hardened slightly. What kind of concerns? I opened the folder I'd brought and slid copies of documents across his desk. These are Marcus's law school records, his bar application, and the ethics investigation report from his final semester. His hand froze halfway to his tie. The color drained from his face. The bar application contained several misrepresentations about his academic standing and the ethics investigation. As you know, failing to disclose disciplinary issues during bar admission is grounds for license revocation. His voice came out as barely a whisper. Where did you get these? That's not relevant. What's relevant is that you hired Marcus knowing about these issues and didn't disclose them to our malpractice insurance carrier. That's insurance fraud, William. The silence stretched between us as William processed the implications. What do you want, Victoria? I want the partnership I've earned. I want Marcus properly supervised until he gains real experience. And I want honesty about family hierarchy, instead of promises that were never meant to be kept. William leaned back in his chair, studying me with new eyes. And if I refuse? I met his gaze directly. My voice was steel. Then I file a complaint with the State Bar Association regarding Marcus's admission issues and your failure to disclose them. I also contact our malpractice insurance carrier about the misrepresentations in our policy applications. His hands were shaking now. You would destroy the firm over a promotion? I would protect myself and our clients from the consequences of unqualified representation. You made the choice to prioritize family over competence. I'm just pointing out the legal ramifications. William was quiet for a long moment, then asked, What exactly are you proposing? Immediate partnership with full equity participation. Marcus remains as a junior associate under my direct supervision until he demonstrates competence. And complete transparency about firm decisions going forward. And if I agree to this? The ethics issues remain confidential. Marcus gets the training he actually needs, and the firm continues to operate ethically and profitably. William stared at the documents, then at me. I underestimated you. You underestimated what I was willing to accept, not what I was capable of doing. The next morning, William called an emergency partners meeting. Janet Morrison arrived looking curious. Marcus appeared nervous, and I sat calmly with my briefcase, prepared for any outcome. I've reconsidered the management structure we discussed last week, William began, his voice carefully controlled. After further review, I believe we need a more gradual transition. Marcus looked confused. Uncle William, what do you mean? I'm promoting Victoria to junior partner immediately, with a pathway to full partnership by next year. You'll continue as senior associate, working directly under Victoria's supervision. The color drained from Marcus's face. But you said... I said many things that I'm now reconsidering. Victoria's experience and comprehensive understanding of legal ethics make her the logical choice for advanced responsibility. Janet tried to hide her smile but failed completely. She knew exactly what had happened, even if she didn't know the details. After Janet and Marcus left, William and I remained in the conference room. That was well played, Victoria. That was necessary, William, for everyone involved. He nodded slowly. Will this affect your relationship with David? It was a good question. David's reaction to my success had been mixed. He was proud of my achievement, but uncomfortable with how I'd achieved it. The family dynamics had shifted permanently. That remains to be seen. But William, let me be clear about something. I didn't do this to hurt the family. I did it to protect my career and the firm's reputation. Marcus needed supervision he wasn't getting, and I needed recognition I'd earned. That afternoon, I called our major clients to introduce myself as the firm's new junior partner. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Several mentioned they'd been hoping for exactly this kind of advancement for me. Marcus spent the rest of the week in my office, getting the real training he should have received from the beginning. To his credit, once he understood the actual complexity of family law practice, he became much more humble and focused on learning. The family dynamics took time to resolve. David struggled with my betrayal of family loyalty. We went to counseling to work through whether I was truly family or just a valued employee. Patricia became distant, viewing me as someone who had overstepped boundaries. Michelle stopped including me in family events for blood family only. But William began treating me as a true equal, asking my opinion on firm strategy and introducing me to clients as his successor. 3 months after my promotion, we landed the biggest case in the firm's history. A high-profile divorce involving a tech billionaire and his wife of 20 years. The case was worth over $2 million in fees and would establish whoever handled it as one of the premier family law attorneys in the state. William assigned it to me. This is your chance to prove you deserve that partnership, he said, handing me the file. I already proved that, I replied. This is your chance to prove you trust me with it. The case took 8 months to resolve and resulted in a settlement that made national news for its complexity and fairness. More importantly, it established my reputation as someone who could handle the highest stakes family law matters with discretion and skill. Marcus, under my supervision, had developed into a competent junior attorney. He'd learned to research thoroughly, prepare meticulously, and ask for help when he needed it. Victoria, he said one afternoon, I owe you an apology for thinking I deserved something I hadn't earned. for not understanding how much work you'd put into building this place. Marcus, the only thing you owed me was professional competence. Everything else was family politics. A year later, I achieved full partnership with complete equity participation. The firm was restructured as Coleman, Chen and Associates, with my name prominently displayed on everything from letterhead to building signage. The partnership announcement was made at our annual client appreciation dinner. Standing at the podium, looking out at clients and colleagues who had watched my journey, I felt a satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with finally being recognized for my actual value. Thank you all for your continued trust in our firm, I began. When I joined Coleman and Associates 5 years ago, I believed in the importance of family, not just biological family, but professional family. People who share common values, mutual respect, and commitment to excellence. I glanced at William, who was watching with genuine pride. I've learned that real family isn't about blood relationships or inherited privilege. It's about people who support each other's growth, who recognize each other's contributions, and who build something together that's stronger than what any individual could achieve alone. David found me later that evening as we were driving home. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "Even though I went against family loyalty? Because you showed me what real family loyalty looks like. Holding people accountable, demanding they live up to their potential, refusing to accept mediocrity just because someone shares your DNA." 2 years after achieving partnership, I received a call that brought everything full circle. It was from a young attorney named Sarah Martinez, a recent law school graduate who had heard about my story through legal networking circles. "Miss Chen, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I'm in a situation similar to what you experienced, and I was hoping for advice. Tell me what's happening." "I'm working at a family firm where I've been promised advancement for 3 years. I've brought in substantial business, handled complex cases, exceeded every performance metric. But the managing partner just announced he's promoting his son-in-law, who joined the firm 6 months ago." The parallels were striking. Another talented woman being passed over for family politics. "Sarah, what kind of law do you practice?" "Corporate law and securities compliance. I've built their entire regulatory practice from scratch." "And what leverage do you have?" "Actually, yes. There are several ongoing matters where documentation is questionable and some client representations that might not meet SEC standards." "Then you have more power than you realize. The question is whether you're willing to use it." Over the next hour, I walked Sarah through the same strategic thinking that had transformed my situation. Not revenge, not vindictiveness, but clear-eyed assessment of value and leverage. 3 months later, Sarah called to tell me she'd been promoted to senior associate with a partnership track. The son-in-law had been moved to a training position under her supervision. "How did you do it?" she asked. I showed them that family loyalty works both ways. They needed to be loyal to merit and fairness, not just blood relationships. Today, Coleman, Chen, and Associates is one of the most respected family law firms in the state. We've established clear performance metrics and transparent advancement criteria. I regularly receive calls from attorneys facing similar situations. Recently, a young attorney named Sarah Martinez called about being passed over for her boss's son-in-law. I walked her through strategic thinking. 3 months later, she was promoted. Marcus developed into an excellent attorney, and now heads our estate planning division. William retired, apologizing. I almost destroyed something valuable because I confused family loyalty with favoritism. Looking back, I realized that my fight was never really about getting a promotion. It was about establishing the principle that competence and contribution matter more than bloodline in politics. It was about proving that merit-based advancement creates stronger organizations and better outcomes for everyone involved. The woman who walked into William's office 5 years ago, grateful for the opportunity and willing to accept whatever crumbs she was offered, is gone. In her place stands someone who knows her value and isn't afraid to demand it be recognized. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply becoming too valuable to be ignored, too competent to be dismissed, and too strategic to be outmaneuvered. And sometimes, the greatest victory is showing people who thought they could exploit your loyalty that you understand exactly what you're worth, and you're not settling for anything less. Merit isn't negotiable. Not for me, not anymore. Have you ever been passed over for advancement in favor of someone less qualified? Have you had to choose between family loyalty and professional integrity? Share your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about workplace justice and the courage to fight for what you've earned. Remember to share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes standing up to family is the most professional thing you can do. Thank you for listening. And remember, real family celebrates your success. Fake family resents your competence.